Hey y'all, what's happening? Chinese here, also known as China El Colston, actress and independent filmmaker. Happy Monday. So I was watching two movies, and one was I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, written by Maya Angelou, starring Esther Rolle and Diane Carroll and other talented actors. Some things that struck me with this movie was there was a scene where Esther Rolle was the grandmother of two children who were dropped off at the train station because their mother and father, I guess, were not their mother and father divorced when they were 5 and 6, brother and sister, and they dropped them in. So they put them on a train and sent them to Mississippi to live with the mother of their father. And this is in the 1920s for those who haven't seen it. And there was a scene where Esther Rose Esther Rolle was outside talking to her granddaughter, who was at this time like 13 years old, 12 years old. And there was three white teenagers, or maybe probably 13 themselves or 12. Excuse me. And they were like, they called her, I guess let's say her name is Anne. Esther Rolle's character's name was Anne. And let's say her last name was Johnson. And the white teenager girls were like, Anne. And they walked over to her, and one of the little itches, she did a handstand, and she had her feet in front of Esther Rolle's face, in front of this elder's face. And Esther Rolle just started humming and sing. She just started humming with her arms folded, as to like tune out this little brat, bitchy brat, who was disrespecting this elder black woman by putting her feet in front of her face while she was doing a handstand. And then two other brats were like circling Esther Rolle, essentially daring her to say anything to scold them for disrespecting her. And then the black grandchild, noticed it when the little girls walked away. Esther Rose, they said bye, I don't know, Anne or whatever. And she was like, and Esther Rose says to them, bye, Miss Sophia, bye, Miss Mary, bye, Miss Candace. And the granddaughter was like, you let them call you by your first name and then you call them Miss? You let them just talk to you any old kind of way? They live on a land that you own. And she said, well, again, this is the 20s. We in Mississippi, we don't have, listen, if we have to let those little sad people, like, if we have to smile on their face and let them say anything to us, we have to do that because we have no protection. Okay. And she's like, well, I'm never gonna, and the granddaughter's like, I'm never gonna let the old trailer trash, white trash disrespect me. She's like, well, fine. She's like, well, so the grandmother Esther Rolle was just like, she said, we have no protection. And then they went into the house, and then the movie went on, and there was another scene where uh, Esther Rolle and her brother, they were both like in their, like, I think 70s or mid 60s. Esther Rolle and her brother lived in the same house, and they owned a general store. So their house and the general store they were merged, right? And they also owned the land that the house was on, the general store is on. And most of the customers, of course, were black people in Mississippi, and they were having dinner. The young girl, her brother, Esther Rolle, and Esther Rolle's brother. And he said, shh. And I guess he heard, they could hear somebody coming up. And then he said, I'll go check. And Esther was like, no, no, no. And then the grandson was like 13, 12. He went to check. And then Esther Rolle went to the door. She said, no, she told her brother, no, you stay here. They're like the same age group, 60 something, early 70s. So she went, and the white man said, hey, there's been is your brother here? Whatever, let's say, uh, it's Thomas here. And she's like, well, of course, he's in the general store working like he always is. He's like, well, there some boys might come over because they may, I think something like they may be looking for a boy, a black man who is messing around with a white woman. So he needs to be careful. So she goes back into the house and she tells him, she tells her grandkids to get the potatoes. So they have this contraption where there's like this, I don't know, a box or something, a big box, like a body length box, and they had the uncle's like, this doesn't make any sense, or this is ridiculous. He has a cane, like he has like a limp in his leg, so he has to put the cane down. He has to get into this box, and then they pour potatoes onto him, and then they put put something over the potatoes over him, and then something over, and then close the box. So he has to stay in this box. I'm like, wow, that is something else. I'm gonna tie this all in. There's another instance in the movie where the grandchild, the boy, he is like went out on a date with a girl he liked. It was in the daytime, and the girl, his sister's like, "You want me to come with you?" He's like, "No, Maya, I want to. You don't want to come with us, do you?" Because he wanted to spend time with a young girl he liked. They're both 12, so he's walking his daytime. She's like, "Make sure you come home soon, whatever, early." He's like, "Oh, don't worry, Maya." So he's walking about, it's night, and he comes across some white people and one black man, and because they're discovering a black man who has been lynched and thrown into the river, I believe is a river or a body of water. I don't know if it's a pond or something. And the young black boy comes up and he sees this dead body of this black man. And what was interesting, they were saying the white sheriff and his assistants or whatever, like, he's dead, and they said turn him over because we can tell if he's from the city or from here by his shoes. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Of course, no, if he's a farmer, or if he's a did he say farmer, or is he a sharecropper, or if he's from the city by his shoes. And they noticed that he had city shoes. It made me think about Emmett Till. And so the grandmother, Esther Rowe, and the granddaughter and the uncle, they're being concerned because the grandson has not returned home, and it's night in Mississippi in the 20s. And so the uncle's like, "I'll go look for him." She's like, "No, you stay here. You stay here. You need to be safe. It's safer if I go." Now, the idea that the woman feels the need to be the protector, it's very troubling. I know it's the 20s. I know it's Mississippi, rural Mississippi. I understand that. But that is very disheartening to know that the woman has taken on the role of protector. Now, they never went into why her brother had to be hiding under a box of potatoes or in a box of potatoes. But it's interesting because it felt like, during chattel enslavement in this country, black enslaved women were raped repeatedly, right? And a number of times, the men who were either their brothers or fathers or husbands or boyfriends, they didn't intervene because they would risk being whipped or killed. Now, I have a feeling that there were a number of men who saw their loved one, whether it be their sister or their wife or girlfriend or mother or daughter, being raped, and they intervened and they were killed. They were willing to die to protect their loved one, the woman in their life, right? And I'm thinking maybe some of them killed the master. Those stories are not out there, but I have a feeling some of them definitely were successful in killing the master who was raping their loved one, a woman in their life. And watching this movie, that part of the movie made me think about how the black woman has taken on, in some instances, as a result of the slavery chattel lifestyle or culture, they've taken on being a protector You stay back. Because the divine design of man, the reason his upper body is strong is so that he can is to protect the women in his life, right? Um, to provide. Generally speaking, right, in ancient times they had to, and even probably now, they had to go out and hunt. The upper body is strong so you can do what you need to do to protect the women and the children in your family, and provide, hunt. Maybe if you eat, meat, you have to hunt, you have to wrestle with the animal, kill the animal, and bring that back so so the wife, the daughters could prepare the food. The original design of the woman um, is nurturing. Her lower body is stronger than a man's lower body, or her midsection is stronger than a man's midsection, because we are designed, if we choose to give birth, right? So our strength lies there, and we innately are more nurturing than men. That's how we're wired, that's how we're designed. But because of the slavery culture, chattel slavery culture in this country, a number of times black women have placed themselves in a position of protector. That should not be the case. Now, moving along, as the movie unfolded, the grandchildren, the father came to get them, to take them to St. Louis, because he wanted to raise them. Him and his ex-wife wanted to raise them in St. Louis. He worked in California, but he was taking them to St. Louis. They were mad at him because they told their grandfather, well, their great uncle, well, we thought our parents was dead. We thought our parents were dead. He's like, I never told you that. But they were like, well, why'd they give us away? Well, what did we do wrong? And then he had gifts. The father, mother sent gifts, and they tore up the gifts because they were angry. Like, you threw us, you abandoned us. We don't want anything from you. But when the father came, the young boy really vibed with him and connected with him. The young boy was very vibrant. He had an outgoing personality. He was so nice. And the young girl was more guarded. She was an avid reader, based off, I think, Maya Angelou. She was an avid reader, loved poetry, heavy voice, big expressive eyes. And she loved and adored her brother. He was very smart as well. They were both very academic, and just really nice young people. But the young lady had more animosity, or showed more animosity toward her father. The young boy once the father came into his life, came back to Mississippi, he let down his guard, and he really bonded with his father, like, straight away. The father was very upbeat and humorous and all that, but the young girl still had she was not feeling him, she was not connecting to him. Well, anyway, they drove to St. Louis and met their mother, Diahann Carroll, and Diahann Carroll was very upbeat and stylish and beautiful and nice, cheerful, and the young boy took to her right away. She hugged him first, and he's like, "Are you my mother?" And she's like, "I am. Give me a hug." And he just fell for his mother right away. I can see where he got his personality from his mother, but the daughter, his sister Maya Marguerite, she again was not bonding with the mother. She was very distant, and the mother was Diahann Carroll's character was a working mother. She was always out, and she was always working she was like a gambler. She worked in the gambling place. Her mother was like a deputy, which was what's the cultural ancestor? Ruby Dee was playing her mother, and now they're in St. Louis. The children living in St. Louis with their parents, with their mother, and she was like very strong-willed and very forthright, and she was not afraid of white people. And it was a white guy who she was like fixing. He got in trouble with the law, and she was going to make a way for him to get out of trouble. But she was criticizing a white guy, and he was like accommodating to her. So it was for the grandchildren to see white people being subservient or submissive to black people. That was like a shock for them. It was like, whoa, because they're so used to being submissive to white people in Mississippi, but now they're in St. Louis, and these black people are talking back to white people and criticizing them and shutting them down. It's just a whole new thing for them. Um, and Ruby Dee was wonderful in this movie. So was Diahann Carroll. Everybody was wonderful. Esther Rolle, everybody killed it. But so when Marguerite, Diahann Carroll was involved with a man, but I don't know if she was married. I don't think she was married to him, but he was always in her house. He was dressed in a suit and he worked, but he wanted to always be in Diahann Carroll's grill in her face. But Diahann Carroll she loved giving parties and being out at parties. She was working full time and she loved to dance, and she just didn't want to. She wasn't a homebody. She wasn't that type of black woman in the 20s. Her mother was a career woman, and so was she. And this guy he wanted her to slow down, but she was not about that life. And she was talking to him in a way, you can't tell me, you can't control me. I'm a woman. And so she was very modern, right? She had a modern attitude about it. And it was a scene where her daughter, Diahann Carroll's daughter from the South, who was like 13 at the time, now she's 13, she comes in the house. I'm tying this all in. She comes in the house and there's her mother's boyfriend sitting there with his legs crossed, and he's like, "What's your name?" Introduces himself. He's like, "Yeah, your mother's never." He's like, "Where's your mother?" She's like, "Your mother's never home. She's always at work. She's always doing something." She's like, "Yeah, I know." He's like, "Do you like playing games?" She's like, "Yeah." So they played the little game where you hit the hand, you have to react, and they start playing that game. Because the mother was always working, and the father had went to California. So now they were just left with their mother, but the mother was always gone to work or at a party or whatever, but she was very loving to them when she was around them. Marguerite's brother was getting used to the city life, so he was hanging out with his friends and not with her anymore. So she was basically in the house all the time reading or reading on the porch. So she came in the house and the mother's boyfriend is there, and he comes in drunk, and he tried to play that game with her, but he's drunk, but he molests her. He rapes her. And I think he raped her to get back at her mother. He raped her because he's a fucking demon. One. But I think part of it too was I'm gonna get back at your mother for not being here for me. She's always out working, or she's always at a party. She's not doing what women are supposed to do. And I think part of that was Marguerite is at home. But prior to the rape happening, when Marguerite had just moved to St. Louis, she was asleep, and then three men were standing over her bed, and they shook her to wake her up, and she's like, and they're like, are you Marguerite? And she's like, yeah. And they're like, we're your uncles. We're your mother's sisters, and we won't let anything happen to you. Now, because we're all mean. You're mean, and we're all mean. When they found out that she was molested, she just stopped talking because she was scared. The guy said, if you tell me your brother, I will kill you, and I will kill your brother and your family. So she didn't want to say anything because she didn't want her brother to be killed by this man, and she loved her brother to death. He's like, Marguerite, you can tell me, Marguerite, nothing will happen. He won't hurt me. He won't kill me. So she finally confesses to him, and I guess her brother tells her uncles or her mother, and the sheriff came to the house. Basically, the uncles killed the guy who raped her. It was a black man. The black man who raped her, they killed him. They just took care of her, and the sheriff was like, we found the man in the river somewhere. Somebody killed him, and then the grandmother's like, a good riddance for him. Whoever did, a good riddance, because basically he raped my granddaughter. And the uncles were sitting at the table just eating their food, like, we ain't saying shit. And she looked at all of them, and one of them winked his eye at her, like, we took care of him. We killed him because he fucking raped you. And then she really stopped talking because she's like, because I said something, this man is dead. Somebody's dead because I opened my mouth. So what I think is interesting is how the uncles in the north in St. Louis, she was hurt. Well, nobody was in the house but her and that man, that rapist. That's why he was able to do it, because the father went to California. She'd have a man in the house to protect her, and the mother was at work, and so she was left vulnerable. But they did avenge her rape by killing the man. Whereas in the South, the grandmother is protecting her own brother. So the brother, the great uncle in the house in the South, he's not a protector. He's being protected by the women, by his sister. And so it's just interesting that that was the case. Also, we gotta even when we see protest, I'm connecting the dots. This is about men being the protectors, divine protectors of women in their community. A YouTuber mentioned this, but I remember seeing protests last year for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, but essentially this one was about George Floyd in particular. And there was a number of non-black women, I guess, and some black women, like with their arms, they were like locked arm to arm, saying, basically protecting black people from the police. Or sometimes there are a lot of black women. When I went down to a protest last year for the George Floyd, for Breonna Taylor, George Floyd first, the women were the loudest. They had the bullhorn and almost losing their voice, and I'm like, where are the black men? Black men should be in the front. Men are the protectors in their community. Men are designed to be the protectors, not women. Women are designed to protect their children. If the father is nowhere in the vicinity, yeah, mothers go into protection mode and they will kill you, just like animals will kill you over their babies. Human mothers are designed to do that too, right? Even those who are not, I'm not a mother, but if I see somebody trying to hurt a child, I'm fucking going in. You're not gonna hurt a child or a teenager in front of me as an adult. I don't play that shit. So even the nurturing side of me, the mother in me, I don't play that shit. But I feel like, at least what I see on social media, and even last year when I saw, this is a long video, I'm sorry, but last year I saw a clip on social media, Instagram, and it was somebody happened to have a camera, I guess, and they were at a George Floyd protest, and it was a man who appeared to be like in his early 30s, yelling at a young man like he was like 19 or something like that, 18. So this man was either in his late 20s, and the guy he was yelling at all up in his face was like in like 19, 18. And he was like, he was practically crying, you gotta do different. You gotta show us how to do different. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You are the older person. You should be showing him the way. It's not that you don't have a teenager showing the older person the older person should be guiding. You and that teenager should have gone to the side without the cameras in your fucking face, and you strategize a plan to combat this abuse. You strategize a legal plan to combat this illegality that keeps happening. You don't yell and cry on camera. Does that represent manhood? Do men cry? Of course, but there's a time and a place for everything. You don't cry on the public stage, on the world stage, over some protesting shit, over like, we should be loving and hugging. Like, are you serious? It's like, I don't know. It's like out of line. Like, it's not aligned properly. or women are leading the protest. No, men are the protectors, not women. It's out of balance. And then I was watching the Madam C.J. Walker inspired narrative on Netflix, and there was a scene where Blair Underwood plays the husband C.J. Walker to Octavia Spencer, and she's opening her hair salon, and no, and they're all excited, but nobody comes. There are no customers, and so Blair Underwood, they moved to a whole nother state, Indianapolis, and he was like, well, maybe we shouldn't have moved here because we're not, and it's only the first, it was only the first day of opening. Nobody came, but you got to give it time for people to get to know about and for people to warm up and come to your place of business. But he was becoming impatient. He's like, well, we need to, I was looking in the paper and there's a new hotel that's opened up and you and I can go down there. Maybe you can be a washerwoman and I'll be a busboy or whatever I need to do. And she's like, no, you can't like plant a seed and expect it to grow the next day. She's like, I'm not going back to being a washroom. He's like, you're going to do whatever you have to do to put food on this table. You as the man are the motherfucking provider, not the woman. For him to say it with such confidence that you're going to do whatever you have to do to put food on this table, that's your motherfucking job as the man. That's not the woman's job. The woman's job, if she's in a position to, if y'all are married, you're going to have children, to be the nurturer and the teacher and to provide guidance and to show love. And you show love and guidance and you protect and you provide. I mean, he was really like adamant, like, no, you're going to do whatever you have to do to put food on this table. It's like, Negro, that's your position. Did you forget? You forgot. But again, I think it's connected to chattel enslavement culture, whereas the black women were working right side by side with the man. But it's like, y'all ain't enslaved anymore. Your ass is supposed to work. So the man is divinely designed to protect and provide. That is all. Peace. Chinese.